Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of IET India's Walk the Tech Talk series season 2 in association with India Automated. In case you have missed out on any of our previous episodes or episodes of season 1 of Walk the Tech Talk series, then please do check them out on IET India's YouTube channel. Before we begin with today's episode, I would like to give you a sneak peek into the world of the IET. The Institution of Engineering and Technology is one of the oldest and largest professional society for engineers. Soon to turn 150, our mission is to engineer a better world. Our areas of focus include future of mobility and transport, future of work, and future technologies. In case you would like to become a member of the IET, all that you will need to do is send us an email at indiamembership@theiet.in. Now, without further delay, I would like to welcome on stage your host for this series, Mr. Pranjal Sharma, the author of India Automated, to take over and introduce our speaker guest and the topic for discussion today. Hi, Pranjal.
Hello, Jani.
The stage is all yours. I'm going to be away and you can go ahead and introduce our topic and speaker.
Thank you. Well, hello, everybody, and for joining us for this episode of Walk the Tech Talk. The guest speaker this time is my good friend Vineet Agarwal, who's the MD of Transport Corporation of India. It has a great history, and we're going to be talking to Vineet about that. But the topic for the day is the future of logistics. It's been in focus in a post-COVID world. So, Vineet, thanks for joining us. But why don't we begin by you telling us a little bit about your company, because it has a great legacy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pranjal, for having me on this show. It's a pleasure to be here. IET sounds like a phenomenal organization, and I think I would ask my colleagues to also join. So yes, my company that I am part of started more than 60 years ago by my grandfather. He has a single man, single office, single truck operating from Calcutta. And now the organization, and that time was just one kind of a business organization, just doing basic trucking. But now we've evolved to doing all kinds of logistics solutions, and not just by road, but by air, by sea, by rail. We offer warehousing solutions, and we have now more than 7,000 people in the group that I employ. And we're moving 2.5% of India's GDP by value of cargo every year. So it's been a great journey so far. And I think one of the strongest things about the organization is our value system. And that value system emanates from something what we call as CORE, C-O-R-E, which is customer focus, ownership, responsive, and empathy. So this has held us in good stead for these 60 plus years.
And I'm sure this will make sure that you are there for several such decades in the future, Vineet. The important point is that you've also seen the transformation and the change in the logistics industry, as you mentioned, from your grandfather's days to just pure trucking to managing warehouses where robots do a lot of work. Can you help us understand where is logistics sector, especially in India, since you are a leader in the sector, in terms of using technology to make sure that efficiencies are there? We've had good policy changes like GST, but I think really efficiency is also going to come from technology.
Absolutely. I think the overall basis of a successful logistics and supply chain, not just organization, but also an ecosystem, is on the basis of technology. From the time something has to move from a point A to point B, or it has to move inside the system anywhere, you need visibility, you need optimization tools, you need all kinds of documentation, etc. And everything is linked through a technology platform. So a successful country, for that matter, in terms of logistics, and ultimately bringing down the cost of logistics in their country so that their export is competitive, the domestic products are cheaper as well as competitive, means that you need a very strong and efficient logistics system. And to have a strong logistics system, you need to have the backbone has to be technology, absolutely, and everywhere.
But Vineet, there is also a perception that it's a very fragmented industry, lots of small players. Large players like you, of course, are I think, more agile and able to adopt technology. But what kind of assessment do you have of the overall use of technology in India's value chain? Is it spreading fast enough? What kind of technologies are now popular?
Yes, you're right that it is the industry is extremely fragmented and organized players form a small percentage of it. I mean, just take not just logistics, but overall, if you see, there are only 12 million out of 63 million companies in India that are registered under GST. So that automatically shows that the overall ecosystem in our country is fragmented, and that includes the logistics sector as well. Certain things have now become mandatory. So if you're a small company or a mid-sized company, you have to be GST compliant, which means that you need to link yourself up with the system somewhere. It also means that you need to now produce e-way bills, electronic way bills. Again, it's a system-driven thing. So you are now forced to move towards technology, and more and more customers are insisting that I want you to be technologically friendly. If nothing else, at least for tracking, let me know where your truck is. Even if it's a small company, if it's an individual, they want to know where the truck is. So GPS tracking becomes absolutely essential. Today, if you go on the highways, you have FASTag. You're going between highways, so you need to pay tolls, and it's mandatory for trucks to have FASTag. It's mandatory for a forwarding company to be electronically sending their documents, and ultimately things like blockchain, etc. So I think some things are larger organizations like ours can drive towards, but now there are certain things that's a bare hygiene factor in all specific industries from in a logistics sector. So you have to move towards those technologies. And as I said, GPS tracking or use of certain types of IoT in your day-to-day operations, or digitization of your invoices for that matter. All of these things are smaller, simpler things, but are getting absolutely essential.
Vineet, in a post-COVID world, I think technology's role will be even bigger. It's being accelerated even as we speak. Your company also leads in warehouse management, and there is a lot of interesting buzz about the technologies being deployed there. Give us some examples of how TCI is using technology in warehouse or even in other ways.
So, in a post-COVID world, a lot of things are changing. And specifically, I think digitization is driving that change and accelerating that change more so. So there are companies that are saying that today we don't necessarily want to be just in time. We perhaps want to be just in case, because they don't want to lose sales over inventory. The inventory costs have come down, interest rates are lower. So they're saying, let me have more stock if need be, but I don't want to lose sales. Or there are other side, there's companies that are saying that I want to reduce warehouses because I want to cut costs. And then you have the third trend, which is of digitization, that is e-commerce. So I read a study somewhere that what has happened in the last 4 months or in the last 4-5 months in terms of e-commerce is possibly what the e-commerce companies had planned for the next 4 years. So that acceleration has happened so rapidly, it has had an impact on the entire ecosystem, which includes warehousing as well. So now warehousing, if we take that as a subject specifically, the evolution there is that if you are going to handle 50-60,000 orders, which we do from some of our fulfillment centers on a daily basis, it means, and they have to be 100% accurate, which means that, if you have a size 40 shirt, which is color white, it has to be that size, it has to be that color, it has to be that brand. Otherwise, you as a consumer is going to scream. So 100% efficiency on your order picking and then order processing, which means that you need to rely on things like barcodes, handheld scanners, even things like robotic systems where you have the inventory that actually comes to you, and then the picking and then the packing systems, and then ultimately conveyors inside the facility, and of course other automated systems, including cameras and so on, so that you prevent pilferages. We've had numerous cases where people are pilfering things and they'll put it here and there and it just disappears. So from a complete organization perspective, there's technology being used everywhere. Now that
You were
cost.
saying, Vineet, earlier that from the point of origin to the point of consumption, there is a complete linkage on a technology platform, which includes, of course, warehouse management. So that's a huge shift, isn't it?
It is because it's what we call it as a glass pipeline. So you start from a factory and it has to ultimately get to a consumer. Now you want to see the inventory entirely in the entire supply chain, and that means that that visibility wherever it is, moving from a warehouse from a factory to a warehouse to a consumer, a CNF to a distributor to a wholesaler to finally a retailer and finally to the consumer. You want to see that entire supply chain, and hence you need visibility and a glass supply chain for that matter. And we do that specifically, for example, in the auto space or in FMCG customers. We see that on a very regular basis.
Will you tell us, any exciting new technology that you are experimenting with or doing pilot testing, which could perhaps roll out in the next few months?
Perhaps we can't tell you that, but no. But I think what happens is that this is a very the field is highly evolutionary, and
so let me rephrase that, Vineet. Let me rephrase that and ask you: what are the 2 or 3 technologies you think will dominate the supply chain, especially in India, which may be considered cutting edge today, but could be very mainstream 2 years later?
So there is clearly a difference between cutting edge and bleeding edge. I think we certainly don't want to be at the bleeding edge, because at that you are really experimenting with a lot of things. So I think if you take examples of other countries like China, etc., where certain things have become very, I would say, normal, and the ease is very high, and your cost arbitrage is good enough, those things will catch on right away. It'll be much faster. So I think a lot of technology is going into order processing and management, which is not just, you don't think it from an e-commerce perspective, but even at the company level, because when they're managing their supply chain, they want to ensure that they have a lot of suppliers available. Maybe in today's state of COVID, there's a trend towards deglobalization also. So which means that order processing management is important. The second area would be, of course, in terms of optimization. So how can I have the right optimization tools where I'm able to go and do dynamic pricing, or I'm able to at least provide the right, whatever industry I'm in, the right kind of cost and quality output. And I would say the third, a little bit on the far end of things, would be automation, where once you are able to go above the labor arbitrage, then you will start seeing more and more robotics, more and more automated handling systems, and certainly a lot of algo-based kind of impact to whatever is happening in automation.
What about drone-based delivery, which could be for last mile connectivity as well? There is now, I think, the drone policy is settling down in India. There is some clarity. So maybe over the next few months, maybe by end of 2021, do you see something like that, at least starting in an experimental way?
So drone deliveries have started experimental basis in certain hilly areas where it's being used to deliver medicines as well as collect blood samples. So that has already started, and successfully by some startups. Clearly, it is also being used in delivery of agriculture inputs, so fertilizers and so on and so forth. But right now, towards delivery, I do not foresee by the end of 21 that it becomes a normal thing. It will certainly have experimental results in certain sectors, certain areas. But I think the legislation is still a little, I would say, immature, and we need to build that up with the right protocols before we are able to really say and push this forward. But there could be other things that can happen with the basic delivery systems. There are facilities now being set up. If you're living in a building in a city, you need to have, where are you going to get all the Amazon boxes, the Flipkart boxes you get? How do you manage that? So you have those, certain kinds of delivery systems that are now being set up in new buildings. So the impact you can see, new buildings are creating those systems where you can actually get your packages directly delivered to your flats. So like this, I think some things will be visible, some things will not be visible.
Thanks, Vineet. And finally, my question to you is what should be done in the industry to make sure that technology adoption increases at every level? Is there one single thing that you would suggest to both tech players who are interested in your sector as well as the players themselves in your sector?
Well, I think certainly the most important thing is building up the skill set of people, because whenever we try to make people understand that this technology is going to be useful for you, it doesn't get through all the time. The adoption rate in India is a little weak. So I think certainly skill development in this area, even for people who want to sell technology, the more important thing would be demonstrate that, show some kind of POCs, etc., and then educate people and push people towards adopting those. I think I can take a very quick, simple example using how we've used mobile phones to really communicate all decision making inside our company. So we have apps that our employees or our customers can use to really do decision making, and they've adopted it very fast. So it has to be simple, it has to be easy, and you have to have some proof of concepts in advance.
That's a great point, Vineet. I think understanding the domain is equally important, because every domain and sector has its own interesting dynamics. So technology solutions have to be then tailored for that. But thank you, Vineet, for joining us for this episode. It's been fascinating listening to what you've been doing at TCI as well as where we are headed. And as you promised, you'll make sure that consumers are not disappointed at all, and they will finally get the perfect order that they made. Thanks so much again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.